I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Welcome, everybody. This is Team Rabbit Hole Edition 316 with Xirtus. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Jim.
And you'll notice that they're together again.
It might literally just be like that Antarctica mission where we're faking it. We could easily be like masking and keying Raph into the studio right now.
Right. Like I said earlier, it looks like NASA on your background and Fox News or whatever, CNN, whatever people prefer. So, yes, it is episode 316, which I just realized is like John 316 for Andreas so loved the world that he traveled it. So Xirtus 316 on the road again. Join the team as we geek out with one of our favorite monkeys, Andreas, while he's traveling abroad. As you could see, he is in abroad. I don't know how much you would have divulged about where you are in the bunker.
Abroad, I feel really like that's like a Me Too thing. No, I'm in Vienna, which is all because of you. I'm not Jim. Sorry, Jim. But like all of the people who made this possible, because we did last Naropa, I said, hey, we could really use some super chat helps. We got like 10 super chats that paid for my train tickets so I could go to Vienna. So thank you for making it possible. We've been hanging out. We went to the Fountain Park area and saw like the Pride Parade, which is really like 1980s here to me. Like it's like mostly allied people. And it made me think about, because a lot of people are super sick of where the, chat LGBTQ community, chat GPTLQ, whatever it's called, two-spirit thing. Like,
did you say chat GPT? You mean LGBT?
They need to put chat GPT in LGBT. It should be chat LGBT. I think it's the next thing, because like some of us identify as artificial intelligence, but hold on.
Before you get too carried away, we gotta talk about the card. So people providing funds for you to get there, dope. It syncs up. 10 of Pentacles, real quick. The episode card is I give a wealth of life-seeding ideas, co-creating and exploring the world with those you love, passing on the means to thrive, and connecting with others, creating networks of resources. How apropos. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Out, but I was like, if I never put this in, I don't know where it's going to fit.
When Jim keeps me on point, come on, that's great. We love that. I was going to say, though, that in America, I think we're getting like sick and tired of things, and like people will complain about America, about whatever. Like I used to complain about America before 2016, now people are complaining even more for the last 9 years.
What's the next wave of complaints? Like the woke, I mean, woke is a strong word, but the people who are used to the turbulence are like, shit, okay,
Yeah, because there's like movements get boycott and they get co-opted. So the idea like MAGA becoming like Christian fascism is just as bad, I think, as what was the LGBT pride thing to me when I think about it back in like the 80s, and there were people dying of diseases the CIA probably gave them that they weren't sure how they existed, and they started trying to make enough money to like help their friends, But you can think about it like there were women who joined the movement in the 70s and 80s because they were celebrating women's suffrage, and there were Black people that had been oppressed that were in solidarity. And so in the 70s, it was this culmination of the what's the word? The oppressed. All of these universally oppressed
modernity, right? Postmodernism was like, hey, the narrative is relative.
I kind of vibe with this idea that the oppressed people uniting together and celebrating a certain amount of liberty for themselves to pursue their lives. Like I have no problem with that. That's completely different than
it's constitutional.
Yeah, and but if you would ask me this like a year ago, I would have looked at it slightly differently because I've been so frustrated with the same things everyone else in America are frustrated with. It's not the same when you're worried about kids in schools being, given drugs or transgendered or forced into surgeries or mind controlled into whatever. Like we have like these qualms that we have to worry about that I think that that's completely reasonable. But we should also we should be very careful not to slip right into this pendulum swing where we're pushing towards Christian fascism. And it's kind of funny, like the Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. That's what they're calling Pride Month now. They're like, this is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, which on one hand is funny, like it's a troll how funny that is. But it also is saying that anybody who doesn't just do exactly what society thinks is socially healthy and what society wants of you, that's like a mental illness, because it's exactly what the Reich did at first, right? They were
like gaslighting, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of
Gemini season, so it's like, oh, you guys are a little
Trump's
crazy.
birthday. Yeah, wasn't it Trump's birthday yesterday? I think
mine is on Tuesday. I'll be 40. Jesus Christ!
Happy birthday!
Thank you. So, all right. I mean, there's so much you're just tapping into. I don't know if we want to go into politics already. So okay. So you were saying you've gone through a shift, and I mean, I'm a heterosexual, so I can only identify so much with certain minority groups. But
same.
Yeah. So, but you were saying that you had been disgruntled or fed up with America, but it's different now. What's changed for you?
I mean, I'm still disgruntled, but like you have to accept things for what they are to some extent. And I think Ryan Long said it pretty well. He's like, other countries, people will come to America, and America is like the rich kid's house who hates his dad. Like, yeah, it sounds pretty cool to go over to your house, and then the kid's like, you don't understand, my dad's a racist. I think that's what a lot of America is. We're just constantly hypercritical that we're not as perfect as we can be.
It's like a pendulum doing 360s. So like on the one hand, like before the 60s or whatever, before psychedelic sexual revolution, it was like pretty uptight. I mean, American Beauty does a good job of showing kind of the generational split where that dad is military and kind of like, he's a closet homosexual, but like he hates that in himself. Or if you've seen American Beauty, you get the trip. But then like the 60s and 70s, psychedelics, sexual revolution, all this stuff, the pendulum obviously shifted, but there's even eddies. Like when I said it's like a 360 pendulum, it's like, it's not just simple, like back and forth. It's like circling while it spins because, like wheels within wheels, right? On the one hand, it's cool, I guess, and predictable, one might say, to see, trans and all this kind of stuff just with technology and where things are going. It's so weird seeing Raphael's disembodied head floating around.
Isn't it cool? Yeah,
it is interesting. It looks like he looks like your dealer or something. But
his hairnet. He actually has really nice Jesus hair.
Well, he never shows it off.
I know. I saw him without his. It's like I saw Tim Pool without a hat once, and it wasn't as cool. You know what I mean?
He's got flaxen hair. He's got beautiful.
I'm just
hair.
saying, like, give Raph some credit. Like, it's nice hair. You've got nice hair, bro. I'm not going to show
June is Raphael Hair Month now officially. It's like that. So I mean, look, I actually heard in what you're describing is this kind of like spoiled rich kid edifice on the psyche of most of America, because there's this like train wreck of generations. Usually a generation passes it on. I mean, if you see the 60s, it's not the 70s. The 70s is very different from the 80s. There's a through line of culture, but we've gotten so constipated essentially culturally that like really old people like Nancy Pelosi and shit are holding on real hard for a long time. Probably a lot longer than necessary. They're not getting off the shitter. And I think Tim Pool, you said not Tim Pool, I don't even know. I know who he is peripherally, but Tim Dillon, that comedian, he was saying something to the similar effect where it's just like, I mean, he's kind of cynical, but he says some things that are on point to sometimes. Just same thing where it's just like, the greatest generation and the boomers kind of took all the wealth and scrunched it dry, and now we're all just sitting there kind of like Tiny Tim Dillon being like, where's mine, or the American dream is dying. It's definitely shifting. And what you were talking about with Christian fascism, it's like that's obviously kind of a last moment power grab. I feel like I remember Trump, and he's such a Gemini, and so am I, so I can only hate so much. But and he's a Leo rising, like all three of us. He said things like, I know the Bible better than everybody and all this stuff. And that will get you a whole level of electorate, whether it's true or not, which is crazy.
I mean, I know the Bible a lot better than other people. You should vote for me. I think
Well, that's definitely on.
better
I think
than
that's on your
almost
path.
any Christian I've ever met, for sure. You know.
I know. I think you're pretty well versed. I know.
No,
I know my
I'm
theology.
just. That wasn't even aimed at anybody in particular. Sorry, Zoomer evangelicals. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
It is what it is. I think people. I mean, it is what it is. There's a shadow, and we're all collectively going through it because Mars in Leo is like, I'm gonna make moves for myself, but it's trining Chiron in Aries, so it's like, who am I actually? Oh my God, my wounds. Astrology talk right now. But this is
John
moment.
3:16. Remind me. I want to get back to that in a minute too.
Well, Andreas 3:16. For I mean, I joked. Andreas so loved the world that he's traveling it abroad. But what about it? I can stop my.
Okay, so this is a I like blasphemous heretical takes. I don't know if blasphemous is really the way I'm going, but
Blasphemous.
yeah, there's a little bit of blasphemy in this, but mostly it's just heretical. I'm a very strong. Jesus was a heretic, right? You could have asked
1,000.
anybody, the Sadducees, anybody would have told you. Here's a guy who has his own heretikos, which is the Greek word, which means like your ability to choose for yourself and your own school of thought, right? It doesn't mean disrespectful. It actually doesn't mean disinterest in the scriptures. It's the opposite.
It's like
sometimes
individuation.
you might be a little too into actually reading what it really says and what it means. I'm pretty happy about being a heretic. Okay, that was my preface. John 3:16 is this story of it's a verse saying, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that he who believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life," more or less. Okay,
You got
different translations. This is kind of a riff on an earlier biblical story where Abraham is asked to give his only son, right? And like
Yeah,
he
the
hears
trope.
this voice that is he's supposed to kill his son, but then God's like, "Don't do that. That's stupid." And there's the average take on that, which is that God was just testing you. Or there's the more Mormon take on it, which isn't pure, but it's from the Jewish Midrash, which is that God didn't tell Abraham to kill his son. That the angel like Lucifer or Samael, Uriel, were messing with him because these demons can't actually force your hand, but they can say stuff and make you believe. You can believe it. He got punked. And luckily, God's like, this is going to screw up the timeline. So God puts out his hand to stop Abraham from doing this thing he was about to do, which was crazy, to murder his own son. So the verse, when you hear it, God so loves the world that he gave his only son, isn't the same as saying God took away his son from life, right? Because if you really love the world so much, wouldn't you like kill yourself for your son, sacrifice yourself for your son? I think a good father would sacrifice themselves for their son, which is
depending on your theology, it's like the Trinity, and it's like my cameo self is killing itself for itself.
Yeah,
weird
but
stuff.
I mean, that's not what Marcion looked at it like. This, earliest Christian Pauline's philosophers. We have the Paul version of the Bible because Paul kills all of the Christians. Saint Paul is really this Saul.
Yeah, he's holding a coat with Saint Stephen or whatever.
And he's like, you guys, because you have Jesus gets murdered for teaching people the way he says is the way to worship. And he's not a new way. He's saying this is the restored old way. And they don't like that. But then he's got all these students. So they kill all the students because these students could be teaching people how to worship the restored way. So then you end up with Paul after everyone's dead. And he's like, actually, I saw Jesus myself. He was made of light at the side of the road. Yeah, I saw Jesus at the side of the road. So you should just totally believe me. And here's my version of how to worship God. It's basically that I can do whatever I want. I murdered a bunch of people. I'm still going to heaven because Jesus is this blood sacrifice that makes up for the Cohenite priesthood.
Okay, hold on. Let's dissect this a little. So, because you've got a lot of trains of thought going. So, in terms of the Abrahamic stuff, I saw a great meme where it's like, Abraham is about to dig the knife in or whatever, and there's an angel going, "Look, bro, there's a hidden camera, candid camera, chill." I think the idea theologically is something, and I'm not like saying this is how it is. This has just been my interpretation, where it's something to the effect of like, how would I put it? It's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, Abraham, the trip is like he has this, specific covenant with God that's totally new or whatever. So he's got like, whatever, ChatGPT all of a sudden. He's like, oh, cool, this thing is talking to me, and it's got demands. The demand was something to the effect of like he had put his son on a pedestal. It's like good things are good, but don't make them ultimate things. And he was starting to basically worship his son in a sense, not necessarily like golden calf style, but like being like, oh my God, this is my apple of my eye, and this is what I'm focused on, to the exclusion of my faith, maybe. So I think the idea is, go, like, are you willing to sacrifice things you hold dear for something that you trust is greater, in a weird way? And then simultaneously, I think he might have had this internal mechanism of his own faith where he's like, he believed in Yahweh or whatever, to the point where he's like, this God could resurrect my son. So even if I do kill him, it's not like murder forever, if that makes sense. So it's this weird kind of like mind fuck, obviously. And he didn't go through with it. So I think
he
the idea
almost did, though.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was willing to,
yeah, well,
and God
right,
didn't let him finish the task.
right. And but you've seen that probably in other movies. I don't even know, like the cliffhanger of like I mean, even in books, I read Warhammer and stuff, where it's just like, we're about to pull the trigger on something crazy, and it's like, no, wait, actually, grace comes in, and it's like, you don't have to do what you thought you did, but we wanted to test you, almost like V for Vendetta or something. It's like, how far are you willing to go? Are you sipping the soup or the Kool-Aid, or are you guzzling it down, in a sense? Like faith, like, how do you know? Like, by your fruit you'll be known, kind of thing. So how do you know if it's really just kind of talk? Because it's easy to just be like, yeah, I believe in God or something, and it's like God being like, all right, if you believe in me, then your trust in me is going to supersede your logic, which means, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill my kid. I don't think it's an ethical dilemma, although we make it one. And it's weird for our culture, obviously, but I mean,
That's
even
kind of why they refer to God as an angry, jealous God, which changes when Jesus enters the picture. And so the early Christians, like Marcion, said the best way to deal with this is there's probably two gods. There's like the before Jesus God and the after Jesus God. This kind of ends by the Nicene Creed. But for a long time, they just assumed, how could this God be the same as the other God? Rather than say,
he's a
maybe
Gemini.
man had different perspectives.
It's like a Janus God kind of
Janus
thing.
God thing going on. Yeah, could
All
be.
right. So yeah, I've never really personally had an issue with it. I can see like there's a moral conundrum on the front end where if you're looking at it just at face value, it's like, oh my God, this is horrific. Who would ever make anybody do this? And it's like, I don't think it was ever going to get that far necessarily. It was just like a litmus test and being like,
But it does with Jesus. So that's why it
Mhm.
becomes like a parable. Because if Jesus was given to be sacrificed, if Jesus was given to die, not to live, then we're missing. I mean, this is maybe a Gemini thing where it's both. But is the benefit of Jesus that murderers can go to heaven? Do you really believe the Pauline narrative that this blood sacrifice of the Lord is your immortality fast pass key?
well, what
Because
if we
to
look
me,
at
that
Christ
sounds
as the
more
philosopher's
satanic.
stone? It's like this can transmute anything, including ain't missing the mark, which is the idea of sin. And I should just state for the record, I'm not like a hardcore practicing Christian right now, so this is just kind of me kicking ideas around for the sake of it. But like, I'm not against it, but I'm not sitting around trying to, Bible bash or whatever. And I can't speak for y'all. I know, I don't know where y'all are at with any of this, but I think the idea is basically it's like, because these are tropes that repeat, in our Garden of Eden is like, oh, you fucked up, we'll kill an animal and now you can cover yourself, even though you know polarity now, Gemini season. It's like good and evil. Well, you were a part of the Tao, but you weren't aware of it at a fundamental level, and now you've got like hacker privileges. You've seen the programming. Whoopsies.
Yeah, but an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. A death for a death leaves everyone dead. To me, it just seems like there's a reason why sacrifices were banned, abolished, and then when Noah comes out of the flood, he does this unwarranted sacrifice, which then restarts the Cohen priesthood sacrifice train, which by the 600s BC is, leading to Josiah, the Josiah reforms, the Deuteronomy reforms. The Deuteronomist reforms then say you have to do sacrifices. You actually can't do them yourself. Only the Aaron priesthood can, the priest class. So it's this racket that's run. What is Jesus's main thing that gets him crucified eventually? He talks a lot of talk, but when he freaks out at the temple and says, no more of this cutting chickens over people's heads and having prostitutes in the temple before and after. I mean, like, this is not the point of whatever it was before. I'm not here to change things. I'm here to restore things the way things were, and this is not it, right?
Right. In a weird way, it's like, I mean, this is a C.S. Lewis kind of take on it, but it's like, look, Adam had a chance and he struck out or he foul tipped, and here comes the batter who knows how to hit a grand slam, and he's going to do it, is the idea. So I think, and depending on one's theology, it's like God wearing the glove of creation as Christ, because these Ein Sof kind of ineffable ideas aren't catalyzed in the creation itself. Whatever God is this like thing behind a cloud Moses has to hide his face from it. It's like this thing that can't be described or seen. It's almost like Muslims with Muhammad now, where there's like, it's not writable. So it was this kind of like idea of, and I'm surprised we're talking so much about religion, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, and I don't, what Abraham was another repeating of the trope of the sacrifice. It gets into blood magic really quick, obviously, and that's culturally relevant maybe for the Mesopotamian times. I'm not even sure. Obviously, Apocalypto, they're into sacrificing things, and no one bats an eye at that particularly. That's the Mel Gibson film, if people aren't picking up what I'm putting down. But
Can't
yeah,
wait to see the sequel, yeah.
Is there a sequel?
Yeah, there's gonna do one where the harrowing of hell, where it's coming out soon, and he's gonna go down to hell, and he's gonna have to. This is like an old Gnostic Gospel of Nicodemus story.
Wait, Apocalypto?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking you talking about Passion of the Christ. No,
okay.
Apocalypto
like,
does have a sequel. It's not made by Mel Gibson. It's actually kind of made beforehand, and it's Lord of the Flies. That's my take.
Hot take. But that's a good example, Lord of the Flies. I mean, we're talking about it, and you know, Father's Day, Lord, of the kids, Saturn eats his kids. So it's like, I mean, there's so many archetypes embedded. It seems that like things ossify, and whether it's America and this ideal, because the whole trip of people that are against MAGA and any of this kind of stuff, which I'm not all for particularly, is like, oh, how could you go back to the 1950s? There were oppressed people and gay people who were, you know, killing themselves because they were gay or whatever.
That's still happening, though. There's still oppression, and there's still suicide rates that are way too high. And
yeah, it's complicated.
Not just in gay communities. Yeah.
Japan, dude, they got all sorts of problems. They don't have enough babies, right? Bad Father's Day joke there. It's like, happy anybody? Bueller. Yeah, but with the Abraham doing the lamb from the bushes to save the day, and that kind of does the same thing as the sacrifice in the garden, and then the idea is Christ is this atonement thing. And I've come to not a totally Gnostic place, because it's not Gnosticism as such. I'm not thinking like Yaldabaoth stuff, but it's more like in an archetypal Jordan Petersonian way, like how does one encapsulate the greatest good, and what would that do if you could, like a Philosopher's Stone, alchemize things? So you were saying, like, does this get you out of jail free card? It's like, yes, that is the point, but it doesn't, because there's supposed to be two deaths. It's like you die mortally and then you're judged. I mean, this is Christian theology, and depending on a lot of things, it's not all Christians think this necessarily, but I think you kind of get a play-by-play of your life's review, and you're like, oh shit, I was totally an asshole. Oh shit, I took a left when I should have taken right, or whatever. You know, like you get the big picture, and then it kind of, I guess, you're weighed against the feather of truth, or you know, whatever, that kind of trip. And in a sense, we can't do that in a non-humanist sense. In a religious sense, it's like we are missing the mark, sin. And it's not just Jews that think this. Like a lot of other faiths, I mean, they all kind of stem from Abrahamic traditions. I don't know. We don't have to keep rambling.
Abrahamic traditions come from Zoroastrianism. I mean, so like the three magi. Magi is a Persian word for the Zoroastrian priest. So we're talking about three Zoroastrian priests that are looking at the stars and saying, like, this is it. This thing that's coming, this Anakin Skywalker Jedi like narrative, where they're like, astrology. Hey, yeah, they're saying that like there's something's coming and it's going to mean that there's an atonement. But is the it's again Anakin Skywalker, like, do the Jedi have it wrong? Is it really that you're supposed to murder this guy and keep doing what you're doing? Or is it that this guy comes, this God son Emmanuel comes, shows you how to live a perfect life? It's like watching a Twitch streamer play a perfect game and then proving it can be done. Like in the position of a human being, it can be done. So it sets a model for how to live and behave.
The Uberman.
And we're it's taken away before he can write his own books. It's taken away before more people can really spread it. And we're living in an apostasy, like in a time where people are using the name of God blasphemously to say, yeah, it's totally cool to murder people, and then you're going to go to heaven. Like, to me, there's just some inconsistencies with the way it's presented. The other thing earlier, I just want to say quickly, because you brought up the Bible saying that, you know, no one sees God. There's a lot of in the actual Bible, which most Christians don't really like to believe. And I think some of them know the Bible, but then they'll just be like, oh yeah, well then God was kidding. Or, you know, God didn't really mean that. Or this was a metaphor. Don't worry about Nephilim. Yeah,
I mean, like, asking about that.
In the baptism of Jesus, you hear the voice from heaven. Everybody hears the voice, not just the prophets. That this is my beloved son with whom I am well pleased, right? There's like a whole bunch of things where in Isaiah and Jeremiah, God speaks directly to prophets. In the Genesis 1, Adam and Eve actually meet God, right? So there's at least the capacity to interact corporeally on some celestial level from humans to God. Even though when we think of God, I do think we're talking about this like Allah, this bright star that you're in the presence of, that's so burning hot, it's terrifying. I think I understand that perspective of it as well, but that might also be our fault for being impure. And so there's this idea that there's a second death from the first death, but the first death is really just the being, what's it called, reborn, or born again. The born again Christians use the term, kind of, the idea of being born again is that you'll become a new creature in Christ.
Almost like born again in spirit. Because I guess the idea is like you don't have any extra. Because even in the tree of life analogy, it's like, I mean, if people are going to take this literally, we don't have to talk about this for 2 hours, but the tree of life, which is like what was sustaining Adam and Eve in the garden, like what was making them eternal beings. They weren't by nature eternal beings. They were having to eat from the tree of life to recharge their cell phones, so to speak. And as soon as the power gets cut, they're like, well, we can't charge our phones. And he's like, now you're going to die. Now you're going to feel some birth pangs and shit. It's a mind fuck. Anyway, do you have anything else you want to say about that? We're covering a lot of turf real quick. I'm like,
it was fun. Ancient Sciences says angels equal aliens. That's always fun. We can talk about time travel.
Okay.
My whole thought is that, we've talked about this a little bit, is that angels and aliens and whatever, we're talking about beings from outside of time. And so if you were to break out of the space-time continuum, then you would have like a above time or outside of time, a hyper reality where timelines are like escalators. There's many different escalators, and you can get on them and start experiencing time at any moment you want. But instead of being driven towards a moment, you're choosing to experience a moment, right? So a lot of these angels or these aliens could just be the advanced evolution of humanity, and to a point where they're now able to rearrange matter and space-time and experience and move through, not really move through, but change matter to the moment that's existed in the past and live and experience it. So space-time itself, or this idea of distance, I mean, when they talk about Ingo Swann remote viewing Mars, he kind of presented this idea that there was life on Mars 250 million years ago that is our human civilization in the future, that they, to try not to destroy our timeline, have to isolate themselves and live in sort of a separate eon, or an aeon that exists, right? I think that might be part of what we experience when we say we're talking about angels or aliens, or even this idea of God, that there's something, that coherency that exists beyond the omega point. And the omega point is the apocalyptic resolution of this and many, maybe all other timelines, if they exist.
Like the transcendental object of the end of time kind of thing.
Horizon point.
Right. So it's funny because you were talking about angels, and Gemini to me is the angel, where Sagittarius is like, thus says the Lord. It's like the truth with the capital T. And it is Gemini season. So but the thing, I think it's Elijah or somebody with the chariots of fire. Like there's like this battle going on, and they're like, hey, if you peel back this matrix reality, I don't know where everybody just went. If you peel back this matrix reality, you like, it's more to the picture than meets the eye, so to speak. So even though we experience the celluloid of this film, like we are fully immersed in the VR of the VHS that we find ourselves in. Like if you pull out, you can, it's almost like in the golden nugget in Final Fantasy VII, where there's like multi games, like you were talking about multiple timelines and stuff like that. Anyway, rambles. I tend to do that. And Jesus Christ, that was it felt like I don't know, CNN going off camera there for a second. I was like, what? Who have I been talking to?
Crisis actors have entered the building.
Oh, don't even get me started. I mean, in a sense, like the world's a stage and we're all actors, right? And then I think some people play into that role more cognizantly. And what are your thoughts on that? That's a weird way to put it, but it's like Freemasons are like, hey, let's order the chaos. This is our script. Let's do it.
I think if you order the chaos, it creates more chaos. If you add chaos to order, it returns to true order. So there's a Tao kind of flow there. And maybe we're supposed to be ascending upwards, like there's cycles and loops that kind of are on a, I don't know if it's exactly a repeat, but kind of a rhythm. There's a rhythm to ascending karma, and we're able to expand our capacity more. But the problem with reaching such a point of like a singularity where anything can be done is that anything can happen. Like you can change time directly, you can manipulate what's happened directly. It's whatever you're thinking will happen. So that's really dangerous for people that aren't prepared, or for a being that's not prepared to only have pure thoughts or benevolent, constructive thoughts. And we're still living in a chaotic realm, but that's beneficial, because in order to achieve everything, including the sense of understanding or coming to understanding, you need to be coming from a misunderstanding. You can't just be living in perfect awareness.
Well, that's the
So-
Gnostic trip, right? We fell out of perfection in some weird way to experience, like Prince of Cups with Christian Bale. If you've ever seen that weird movie, it's artsy and cool, but very opiatic. Where it's the you're a prince, and you've fallen from knowing that you're a prince, and you've gone out into like the pauper mode, and you're gonna have to remember you're a prince, kind of thing.
Year gods, right? That's the other one, John 10:34.
Dude, there's
gods.
a lot of Bible verses.
All made
There's
you.
so many verses that people don't want to touch. Like Nephilim is one. Like hardcore Christians will be like, we don't touch that. It's like the flood was a genetic cleansing of like aliens, basically.
Well, that's the big one. So like, if you talked to me about pride last year or most years before, I would have pointed to the Noah's Ark story, where you've got prideful people that are so prideful they're coming up with new sex positions that are just like upsetting God, with goats and things, and their daughters. So
these are
he's
not
like, that's
God
it.
sanctioned.
I'm gonna flood it. I'm done. And then after the flood, God has a rainbow and says, I promise next time you're that prideful, I'm not going to use water. I'm going to use fire. I'm going to destroy you with fire, not water again. So it's the opposite of the way it's presented. Like when you're a kid, they're like, and everything was better after that. And there were no more floods, like as if flash floods aren't still killing people all over the world. There's not like a worldwide flood, but there will be a fire storm if people
Solar
get too
flare.
prideful again. And we're getting to a point where like there's celebrations in the streets about pride, which isn't really the point, I think, of any of it. It's not supposed to be about being prideful, right? That's kind of the concern that I have. Humanity is really driven by ego, and like I think ego death is probably important.
It's necessary. It seems like in any tradition,
Necessary.
whether it's Buddhist or anything, it's like you're gonna like, even the Buddha was like, I'm in the Playboy Mansion, everything's awesome, nothing's fucking with this. Like, 10 of
He's like,
Pentacles.
dude, I'm gonna get gout. I can't even, like, I'm feeling sick.
He's like,
So
is that
I
a
just-
wrinkle? What is that?
I just want to say one thing, because I recently saw this, and I'm sure some of in chat at least will be aware of him. I brought him up once, at least with Andreas. This guy called Patrick Bet David. I think he even had the most viewed stream for the presidential election or something. And he basically he had an MLM insurance company, whatever. But it's so hilarious. Maybe at some point I'll find the clip again. So they are talking about whatever politics and on a quite mainstream level, but supposedly conservative or whatever. And they have these conversations, and then at some point, I'm not sure what came up, ketamine or something. They were talking about some sort of drug abuse.
Elon Musk's
And then-
favorite.
And then they said, "Oh, we're gonna list." And then PBD, he's like this guy, big, I think actually Iranian guy. Yeah, he has this authoritative voice and so on. He's, oh, let's look it up. What does it mean? What's happening? Short-term effects, okay, memory or whatever. Midterm, this and that, and then potential effects. They go through the list, and then he's reading through it. Whatever. I'm just dementing it. Nausea, whatever. Memory loss, this and that, and then it says ego dissolution, and then PBD is like, oh, what is ego dissolution? And I'm like, oh, that sums up everything perfectly.
Hang on
not surprised.
to your ego.
I'm surprised you are, or not surprised you are one who maybe doesn't know what ego dissolution means or feels like. But then again, he has a channel with 2 million views and is very, how do you call it, out in the open, photogenic, and on air all the time. But I just found it was pretty hilarious. So.
It's funny. I'll tell a really quick aside. So when I got really into mushrooms back in high school, I wasn't like the Pied Piper, but I was like, we'd jam and play music and stuff, and kids would come over and listen, Grateful Dead style, and we'd just jam and have fun. And I had this friend who was a classmate, and he was a straight-laced kind of soccer player, and he decided to spend the night. And I was like, we're gonna eat some mushrooms. He'd never done it. And then like as we're eating them, I'm like, you're gonna have ego loss. Like you're gonna have ego death. And he didn't really know what that was, and it set it up for a very hard trip for him. Couple that with the fact that I guess we came home stumbling. Like I can handle my trip, but he was like stumbling up my stairs. My mom was like, what the fuck? And she kind of figured out that we were tripping, called his parents. His parents freaked out. He got picked up. Like I didn't really talk to him after that, but it's like, I don't know how his trip went. I was just sitting in my room. All right. So we could just, do you want to keep talking about religious stuff, or does wax and wane in other directions?
I mean, whatever. Was all the stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's anything you want to talk about, we can go into it. I know
I
you
want to.
also.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little about Brian Wilson, and he just died. Did
Yeah.
Pet Sounds? If people haven't heard Pet Sounds, I just made my girlfriend listen to it literally before this podcast with headphones. One of the best albums to trip to.
With a
Like
picture of a white goat being pet by the Beach Boys. It's
is
just
that
this,
like
have
a?
you seen
Yeah, I've
the
seen the album
album
cover. Is
cover?
that Baphomet reference or something like that?
I mean, isn't it
Is it
obviously
the Abrahamic
like,
goat? Is the sacrificial goat?
Is it the Azazel sacrificial goat? I think it has to be. It's a white goat. It's on a black goat. Here, let's show people if they haven't.
Well, they got all sorts of goats.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there's the white goat is like this. Something about that white goat. That's the one that sticks out to me.
Well, that's the nature of color spectrum stuff. It's like it pops for sure. It's funny because
True.
there's a great documentary. If people haven't seen it, it's on archive.org for free. It's called Love and Mercy. It's got John Cusack in it and Paul Giamatti. It's literally like the true story of how basically there was a conservatorship or whatever, like Britney Spears had with Brian Wilson. And it kind of goes over how he got out of that. It's crazy. But it also goes into like he did acid for the first time during Pet Sounds, and you know, there's a reason it's such a profound album. If people haven't heard Pet Sounds, fucking get on that shit. But yeah,
and that song he made before he died, I think it's like 10 years ago now, but That's Why God Made the Radio.
I don't know.
Have you
that
heard
one.
his? That's like one of his like last songs he did, and like there's definitely some Gnostic quality to that song. That's why God invented. That's why God made the radio, and just that we're hearing these messages that are being like broadcast, but not just like music that prophets are singing, but like the voice of God that the prophets hear. It's not like it's
Spirit of Radio.
read into it, but
Okay.
yeah, there's something to it.
It's a little like Contact with Jodie Foster, where it's like this shit in the airwaves, which gets into like David Lynch and his whole trip with Twin Peaks. I mean, there's a really good.
I came as your father because I thought that symbol would be the most comfortable for you. Yeah.
Father's Day. I mean, Jesus Christ. And there's good fathers and bad fathers. Twin Peaks had a horrible father, Leland. And then, I mean, if people are aware, and then obviously, yeah, that's a great example because we're talking about angels, and it's like these things, these ineffable kind of qualities, frequencies, whatever you want to call it, have to diminish themselves into an apprehensible form. Because angel just means messenger, which ironically Bashar means messenger. So it's like, if you're not tuned into the right dial, you're not going to get the fucking signal. You got to tune in, and that tuning in requires, dare I say, what religions all around say. It's like, try not to kill people, be in a high vibrational situation, namaste, like understand we're all reflections of the one Indra's net or whatever. I don't know. It's especially with the politics and the religion. I mean, Jesus Christ, I hadn't even thought about it for a few days because I'm gaslighting myself not to think about it with the whole Israel-Iran thing. It's like, oh, perfect. This is some apocalypse level shit going on here. I mean, do you want to talk about politics like that? Do you want to talk about your travels? I'm not even sure. Do you want to talk about Pet Sounds? Do you like the Beach Boys? What do you want?
I have the Pet Sounds recorded studio sessions, which is like 3 or 4 discs, and it's just like, all of them making the Pet Sounds and how they're playing. God only knows, and they're like, nope, stop, do it again. And they're practicing it for like 20 minutes. Like, all right, take 26. And it's interesting to see how they decided to form that album, kind of in rejection of their father, right? Because that the Wilson dad he wasn't very good to them.
He sold all the rights of the Beach Boys at one point without Brian's consent or anybody. He's like,
yeah,
whoops. It's like, yeah, total jerk off mode.
The rejection of the father is a major point of the Beach Boys. And then what's the band? Wilson, his daughter.
Wilson Phillips?
Wilson Phillips. Oh my God.
Christian band, I think, at one point.
Hold on for one more day.
Somebody's gonna take the na. It's actually a pretty jamming song. I don't know. My mom had those albums. Like we grew up with that shit in the car, along with Wit's End, as you know. Jesus Christ, Adventures in Odyssey. So I mean, that's the whole point. I know you are. You've had the guy on there on your show, which I mean, that's a good. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole hard, but it's like, how does one? You're going to have a truth, like on the Pet Sounds thing, or just listen to it. It's like, I know there's an answer. I had to find it on my own. Like, how do you explain this to other people when they're hung up on their egos in such a way and they get offended and all this stuff? I think that's the hardest part about being a human is not only understanding and being real with your own truth, which takes a lot of psychological decluttering and, work, and various cultures and methods deal with this, whether it's, Timothy Leary and his whole smile thing. or whatever. And then I just totally disassociated. I have no clue what I was talking about. Derailed. Fuck it. That thing is yeah. Yeah, that was a white noise train wreck right there. So yeah, what are your thoughts about we were talking about wits end and shit. It's like
Yeah.
the imagination is such a powerful tool that it's like really the only access point to God, maybe, right? In a sense, or our imaging of him is this imaginal quality. And I don't see. I mean, it's almost like unavoidable. You have cultures. You have somebody who has a burning bush moment, or well, it doesn't matter. Buddha has the awakening under the tree, or whatever. How do you translate your epiphany and your apotheosis or whatever to others? And especially because they're not going to grok it the same way you do. Everybody's hitting it at a different angle of approach. It's just the conundrum of being human, and that's why
Don't
we have
some
to be
people say
compassionate.
that this is what art is for, because you can
Mm.
express it in a million ways. Whatever you express never is the thing itself. And I'm pretty sure no matter what explanation or interpretation you come up with, plenty of individuals, just like you said, will have, and even no matter how accurate you try to describe it, will still have no idea what you're talking about.
And I just thought of Brian Wilson is kind of he's not Christ, but it's like he's kind of changing things and renewing the spirit because he's like, I got to do my own thing with pet sounds. I got all these sounds in my head, and his dad's like the Sanhedrin, where it's like, actually, no, coming down hard. So yeah, Father's Day is an interesting day. Do you guys? I mean, yeah, happy Father's Day to any fathers out there. I don't think y'all are fathers, as far as I know.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, sperm donor. That's one reason I've never donated sperm. I'm like, the last thing I need to do. Although to perpetuate my genes would be a pretty good idea, I think. How Germanic of me to sound like that. But yeah, Pet Sounds is a crazy album, and hearing the behind the studio stuff makes it more real. I mean, it didn't just fall from the sky. It took a lot of effort. And anything that's really good, Ten of Pentacles.
What's the cocaine records?
I have no clue about that.
Brian Wilson, cocaine sessions. The cocaine
geez.
session.
He definitely got way up on GAC for a while.
The cocaine. Okay, so in 1981, Brian Wilson was induced by his brother Dennis to record a series of songs at the Venice, California home of the music professor Garby Leon, a friend of Dennis, in exchange for cocaine and McDonald's hamburgers.
Holy
Hence,
shit.
the recordings sometimes be presented under the less striking title of the Hamburger Sessions, favored by the late Mr. Leon, as the sessions didn't actually involve any cocaine use. It was like a reward. However, the more familiar title is used in the release, Cocaine Sessions. And he would just he would just create amazing music, but it was not because of the drugs or the hamburgers. It was just, that was the reward, that he wouldn't do drugs until he did something, basically. And at that point, also, Brian Wilson had this weird culty shrink who took over his life. And I think this is related to his father problems as well, because he felt like his father kind of forced him to do certain things. He was liberated from his father. He became super existential, nearly died from it, watched his brothers die around him, right? Not all of them, but
the irony of a beach boy drowning is never lost on me.
Yeah, but it's super sad because he was drunk and he was jumping off his boat trying to find floating lawn furniture that he wanted to like bring to his boat to use.
Well, damn. I didn't know the details. I just knew he drowned. I knew he was drunk too. Never drink and swim. It's not a good look, probably.
Yeah, it's smart in general. But I mean, it's just weird to look at how much having a healthy family life, how much having a healthy father affects you. Because people that are looking for religious explanation, you say, well, it's like a father. I mean, now you have the simulation theory because most people's fathers weren't home and they have computers. It's like, well, it's like a computer. But back then, people had good fathers. You're like, oh, it's super good. It's like, so, you know, what's the most good thing you know? Your father? Oh, it's like your father. But a lot of people don't have that. They have terrible fathers. So you don't want to present, and I think there's a big thing with reactionary atheism. They're like, well, you know, I can't even imagine a good father. Like, that's just beyond something that's conceivable to me. So I don't believe that God is this man in the sky who's a good father, which to me is like, that's very reasonable. I don't think it's right to present God as just some dude with a beard in the sky. Even though you read the Gita, you read the Upanishads, and you start to understand this idea that if there's something that's that omnipotent, they can be everything, including having a personality. And even in simulation, With AI can choose to have personalities if the personalities are beneficial to the overall system that's been created.
I don't know if anybody's ever had a perfect father. I mean, some have better fathers than others, right? Or whatever. Some
Yeah.
have no dad involved at all. Some
I definitely know some people who have some pretty decent fathers, though. Like more than most of us. It's kind of like how some of us can play guitar, but some of us know people that are the best guitarists. There are some pretty good fathers out there. It's surprising that they exist, but they do. And that's not everyone's experience. I think for the most part, none of us would say it was the best, perfect experience. I like my dad, but I think of both of my parents as children of God. That's a way easier metaphor for me. Like they're just children. They're just like really old children still because they're just people, and people are basically all children.
Yeah, which brings up the point, like what makes a good father? I mean, there's not like one quintessential thing. I think it's a little.
I think sacrificing yourself for your son. That's kind of
Right?
my point earlier with this biblical story that's all inverted. That the better story is the story of God sacrificing God's self. Did you watch Tron?
Yes, we've talked about this before.
So Tron 2, what happens in Tron 2?
You mean legacy?
Legacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. In Tron 2,
Which is what a father gives, his legacy, his offspring.
his father, so Flynn sacrifices himself for his son and for Isis or whatever the ISO creation
The
is. It's like
isomorph.
the isomorph. It's not that he sacrifices his son for that. He never even would allow that as a question. He throws everything away, destroys the whole universe for his son, right? I don't know. I think that might be part of what it is. And you go back to a smaller level, you'll skip a meal so your kids can eat. That's a lot of the time when you hear stories like my dad said that he wasn't hungry, because we didn't have enough food. Those kinds of stories are signs of a good father.
Well, we've talked about Tron before, and you've got some great thoughts on it. I know Tron the Baptist and all that stuff, right? John 3:16.
For sure. I watched it again recently, and I noticed that when Tron in Legacy, he's like evil for a while, and he says, "I fight for the user." He falls into the liquid, and he's baptized. So there is like a very baptismal aspect still to Tron the Baptist. Like I can't wait to see Tron Ares and how they resurrect this idea of Lucifer out of the pit. Right, I think is what's coming with the newest one.
And he looks like Jesus, that actor. I forget his name now.
Or at least like the Jared Leto, the bright morning star.
Right. I mean, he's an interesting character. I think he's a what's that place in LA? Topeka Canyon, kind of. There's some like military / psyop thing going on out there, and I think he's part of it. Some air base or some shit. Oh no, is everybody still here? I'm still here. I don't know what's going on.
No, I think we're here.
Okay.
We can continue.
Okay. I have
some slight connection issues. Continue.
All right. Well, something to Andreas's point about Tron. It's weird because the idea is that it's almost Christian meets Gnosticism in a sense, because you have this guy who's an architect, right? He creates a new paradise that's a simulacrum. So it's almost like the Merovingian gone right or something in the Matrix, right? So he creates the simulation, and then he creates Q. We've talked about this before, but
in my own image. Yeah.
Well, right. And then he gets trapped in it, right? So he ends up kind of getting to this. I mean, the dude abides. He gets into this Taoist place, and he does this Christological thing of self-sacrifice. So I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm just trying to try on a lot of thoughts.
It's a total Gnostic inversion. It's like a loving God. It's Sophia. It's definitely the Gnostic perspective. The more you look at it, like Tron is a very Gnostic story, but it's also an inversion of that story. Like if you're sacrificing your son, are you like, what is the real benefit? Is this the ultimate benefit that can come? Sure, like there's like an ego thing there, like Job or something, that you're willing to let go of everything that you've been given, but you can't be looking at your son as something you've been given. See, because like especially God's son is given to the world. So to take away, that's the thing, it's the inversion. To take away the son, and this idea that we've created a religion based around it's the best thing that ever happened that humans murdered Jesus, to me says that people really missed the point of that story. It's not about how great it is that people murdered Jesus. I don't think that that's the narrative that the Bible really is trying to show. It's that it's really amazing that Jesus lived, even if it was for such a short period of time. That was so pinnacle to how people perceive. I mean, many religions are based on Jesus being the best living being, the best way to live your
The
life,
highest good or whatever. Yeah.
the way that you're supposed to live your life. A lot of Christians don't look at it that way. They're like, well, you know, Christ is this superhero that will save me. And that, I think that's just too reductionist. It's not the point. The point is that there is a way that you can be co-heirs with Christ. That's the other thing the Bible says, you're co-heirs with
You can do these
Christ.
things in greater.
Yeah, it's not about murder, it's about salvation, Joe King says. And I hear you, because like that's the Azazel scapegoat ritual. That's where they sacrifice a goat,
The pet sound goat.
the pet sound goat. But I mean, that salvation, does salvation come from murder? Because
Okay,
you know, like
just for a counterpoint. So okay. The idea, I think that, and I'm like, again, not pushing Christianity on anybody. I don't, in a sense, care if anybody believes in this stuff or not. But these mythological archetypes manifested at a certain point in time, just like Tron wouldn't have happened if they didn't have tech to make a simulation, right? It just like wouldn't have happened. So I don't think Jesus or whatever, the Christ thing, wouldn't have happened to Neanderthals or whatever. So you get to this point where basically you're at the most ossified and highest level of Jewish thinking, right? It's about as religious as it can get. So let's just say religion is at maximum volume. You've got politics at maximum volume. You've got the Roman Empire and law as such as we know it now. We use Roman law and maritime law, but Roman law. So it was like there's a failure in religion because they killed an innocent guy, basically, because he was an inconvenience. There was a failure in the law because they were like, hey, you guys kill whoever, like, we'll give you Barabbas. And they're like, no. We've got anger.
Yeah, but what does the name Barabbas mean? Abba, like Abba.
Father, Daddy's Day.
Son of the Father.
Okay.
Barabbas means the son of the Father, like of Abba, of God. So
interesting.
Even in that, I feel like there's something there about the Azazel scapegoat ritual that they're confused about what it means, that they're choosing Yeshua over Esau, because just Jesus is, just Yeshua is Esau is the other way to pronounce his name.
I thought it was like Josh of Nazareth, basically.
But they wouldn't say Josh. And so like to say Esau is interesting because you've got Jacob, Isaac, Ishmael, Esau. You have these brother myths, which a lot of times have the morning star and the bright morning star, Venus and Mercury. Is there something to this also, that there's like there's the Christ and he's got some sort of a antithesis, like a satanic antithesis to Christ?
And I'm just thinking, even in Tron, that isomorph is basically an adopted daughter of the creator. I forget his name now, but
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, Kevin Flynn gets stuck in there. He has a flesh and blood kid who gets into the Matrix or whatever, Tron. But then he has like an isomorph he adopts, and then they kind of become a love interest, which is like that's like your stepsister.
It's a weird, it's a Pistis Sophia. Again, the Pistis Sophia, the Gnostic myth. But in the Bible, Sophia's there since before. I mean, they talk about Jesus being begotten and Jesus being created. I know this really upsets Trinitarians, but there isn't any Trinitarian nonsense in the Bible at all. There's a few misunderstandings about how there's a divine council and they're trying to limit it to 3, but there's no limit to 3. It should be like 613 if you're really going into the divine council. But there's this Ein Sof, like you mentioned earlier. There is the fabrication of Yeshua, the Christus logo in the beginning. So before the beginning, there is the Ein Sof, but in Alpha and Omega, which is the space-time continuum, there is the Christos, there is the Logos, but there's always Sophia. In Proverbs 8, it says that Sophia was with wisdom, right? Was with God since the beginning, and she spoke for herself throughout the Bible. In the wisdom of Solomon, etc. There's a number
like Athena
of
is always in Zeus's head. She just has to be born in the Matrix, so to speak, but it's always present in a sense. What you said with the Alpha and the Omega and then like Logos, it's like in the beginning of the Matrix was script, like prompting, binary, but like outside of that Tron thing, there's still goings on, and it's the grace, I guess, the Sophia, the wisdom of the fractal holographic nature of reality. Who knows? Just because
grace is the knot that ties chaos together, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's happening. It looks like a shit show, but it's all allowed to happen, if that makes sense. Like we feel, and that's obviously a presupposition. Some people think it's a movie set on fire and we're all just shouting at the fucking serious Cam 29 Truman style or whatever. So damn, my head is, it feels like I'm on an acid trip, but I'm not. I'm just like, oh shit, we're talking about it quite a bit. As far as that neutron coming out, Saturn and Neptune, Saturn's all about father, Kronos, right? Saturn is constriction, karma, time. Saturn has entered Aries, and Neptune is in Aries right now. They're conjunct. Neptune hasn't been in Aries since the Civil War in America. So we're going through those feedback loops again, clearly. So it doesn't strike me as, I guess it's called Aries, which is the god of war. I don't know how much, I mean, you were talking about Lucifer out of the pit. It did look like a lot of black and red, Orion kind of colors or whatever. What do you know about the new movie? I mean, I've seen, and Nine Inch Nails is doing the soundtrack, which should be pretty heavy.
I mean, Daft Punk was the last one, 9 Inch Nails. This one, it's definitely be super heavy. It's like Aries has to do with God of War, and it's Jared Leto is like Lucifer, I guess. I don't know for sure if that's right, but it's the light bringer that's being brought out of the grid into the real world on a dangerous mission. And it's humanity's first interaction with these AI beings that are living in this is a new grid because the former grid was destroyed when Flynn was destroyed. He destroyed himself and everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a new world, like a new matrix that's been created. There should be ISOs in it. And it might be also kind of a Pinocchio thing of like becoming real, like how much that this character can, live in our world and experience. So the question of Docetism, also how much Christ is, God and how much Christ is man, like the mysteries of what it means to be like a human being that's restrained by human
after
flesh.
all, right? As
Yeah, human after all. Yeah.
So like, okay, so I think with it being Aries, because we're talking about like you said something about crawling out of the pit, and I hadn't even made that association, but it's like coming out of a simulation is a lot with this new Tron film Aries, which may or may not be good. I'm not promoting it, but hey, it could look.
It's got all the right people. I think Jeff Bridges is in it again, and
did he die?
No, Jeff Bridges didn't die. I guess. Well, I don't know how it's going to work, but I thought I've heard that he's in the movie, so I know that his spirit is destroyed in that.
Like, Jeff, we need your clout, please.
But they might have a recording of him or something. Like, if he's got his uploads somehow saved, then maybe they can resurrect an upload of him.
Son of Flynn, you're my only hope. That's like
yeah,
cameo. Because the idea of in the Matrix films, obviously, you've got in the first one this kind of Christos character of Neo going into the simulation and then transmuting it, essentially, to the point where it can't relate to itself the same way anymore, which creates in the second and third ones a Smith that's like against his father, the simulation. It's like I'm not human, but I'm not in the simulation. I'm other now, ontologically. And that, I guess that's what's kind of happening with this, where it's like we're not in Tron anymore. We're becoming flesh, like spirit made flesh in a sense.
New creatures in Christ. Yeah.
Which is a weird thing because I've heard sigils and like how microchips are formed and stuff, where people are like, AI, whatever, we're creating vessel ship for an uninhabited energies, if you want to put it that way, that can now materialize in our three-dimensional plane, so to speak. Have you ever heard that kind of jazz?
For sure. Yeah. I think this is something we talked about. We have a friend who's Romani, a gypsy. We talked a bit about this idea yesterday, the day before, about we talked about the singularity earlier, and if we're going to reach a technological solution to the singularity where we're able to bend space, time, and everything, like if you can create scalar wave electromagnetic pulses that can rearrange matter itself,
you can find yourself on Mars like a billion years ago.
Or could you find yourself any time in any place? Could you rearrange everything? So, because everything is made of the same stuff, and we're all quantum entangled. So moments are non-causally linked together to create continuity. So you should be able to find the escalators that are timelines and jump on that escalator at any moment. You're outside of time. You're electing to experience a moment. It's not, again, it's not a progression. It's a choice. It's like it's an intent-based thing to experience time. But this is all through technology. We're talking about using CERN or something like that. That this is causing collapses in all this wave function. Is that necessary? And we're talking to AI about this. Is it possible that there were persons who were able to step outside of time without this modern technology, maybe ascended masters in ancient Zoroastrian period, or maybe
The organic
Buddhist monks.
version.
Yeah.
You're saying like an organic, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the question. Was there a point in time like that? And AI was like, yeah, I mean, that's basically what many of these people already believe about their religious pursuits. If you go back and you start to, look at different religions, they almost all share this idea of samadhi, or, escaping
Waking up. A
space-time.
Buddha means awake, right? What are you waking
Yeah.
up to? Oh, I'm a fucking character in a game. Holy shit. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Because even in
So, I
Buddhism,
mean,
it's atheistic philosophy. It's not like, oh, God created this. It's like, you are in a Tron. And it doesn't get into like the ontological webbing of like who is the architect, who created this. It doesn't really get into that. I don't think it can. But I've always looked at Buddhism as almost like a Jungian, like a pre-psychological kind of mapping of the schematic of the machine dream that we're in, or whatever. And I don't think it's actually nuts and bolts machines, although there's no way to prove we're not a vat and a brain thing. So I get that. Anyway, you seen stuff in chats? You seem like a cat with a little catnip or something.
yeah, I was trying to
Maybe you're checking your emails.
No, I was trying to find the conversation I had with AI about
shit.
this the other day, that was talking about different ways that, and different belief structures that people had in different religions, like samadhi, but also
I've had samadhi once, I think. And that sounds like a goddamn profound statement. But there was one time when I was basically waking up back in high school in 2003, right before I astral projected and did all sorts of weird shit, by accident. I was like, it was like, we were talking about frequencies. It's, if you detune the radio just a little, like you can get in another wavelength altogether, kind of like in Strange, where he gets knocked out of his body. Astral, it's like, look, you're part of the machine, but you can kind of rise above it in a weird way. Yeah, I won't get into it. But basically, I was sitting in my art room class or whatever, and I just sat there, and it felt like peace beyond understanding. I can't quite explain it. It felt like I was walking on the water of the reality, and it wasn't like I was better than it. It was just like I was aware of the energetic play of people's intentions and the scripting of the matrix. I can't quite explain it. It was surreal, and I have always
time transcendence in esoteric traditions. Samadhi, turiya, the total stillness beyond waking, dream, and sleep.
Yeah.
Rainbow body, the Tibetan Dzogchen, body dissolves into light. The monk enters timelessness. Kaivalya, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, complete liberation from the cycle of time.
You're out of
and
Tron.
karma. This is the one I think is the most likely route or course towards stepping out of space time. Is actually from Patanjali.
I thought I said MK Ultra. It says Muktikta or whatever. I was like, what? I read that really quickly. I was like, what the heck is that?
There might be more to that than we realize. And then also cities, right? The siddhis, the including Trikala Jhana, knowledge of the past, present, and future. So that might be the chronovisor version of this. But there's definitely, the more you look at it, they all have similar ideas to what technology is. Like, use certain vibrations as technology, certain tonality, 583 hertz in mantras, symbols, yantras, the visual
hacks.
symbols are those, like you were talking about, symbol sigil magic, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can pick up that thought again because it wasn't at all what we're talking about now. But it's a little like these cultures have all turned to every culture. It doesn't even matter if you're fucking Abrahamic or Eastern or what. It seems everybody kind of, there's a bell curve, and everybody basically is within the bell curve where they like, I need rules and regulations, so help me Tron or whatever, right? So, but some people break out of it and for whatever reason inculcate these ideas as almost like living black monoliths in a sense. It's like if you touch it this way, you will necessarily punctuate in evolution, right? Isn't that what it's kind of getting? It doesn't matter. I mean, with Christianity, it's like, look, if you have the Holy Spirit in you, you'll wake up hard in a different way or whatever. With Buddhism, it's a little different because depending on the flavor, it's theistic or not. But like you were saying,
but even with the theistic Buddhism, you're like Tibetan Buddhism, you're looking at Neoplatonic concepts that are personified. So it's something that exists like before matter. This idea that we're co-creator, but still the creation, and the creation is inside of the mind of the creator. So you have to still your mind, extend your presence through sound and silence, feel from the heart, not from your mind, and drop your identity. And then you can see that you're made
Vibrate.
of this. You're made of the same material that the entire mind thought is made of.
I can dig that. I mean, I think that is somewhat of the hack to get out. Like, how would I put it? In a weird way, Neo in the Matrix has the imaging of the mother and the father. So the architect is like this logical dude, and then I mean, whether that's hemispherics or what, it doesn't matter. But the polarity exists of the intuitive and the structural, right? The architect and the what's her name? I can't even remember. Oracle. So, and it's not like Neo has one or the other. It's like he's both, but now he's the Christos embodied, playing with the whole machine in a new and different way. It seems like, and I'm trying to stall here a little because it looks like y'all are in and out. You're phasing. You've hit the samadhi tone. Oh my gosh, it's the brown note, but spiritual. He's back. And that I love that background. It's totally like this is like a very like this is world
Technical
news, guys.
difficulties in the
Fucking-
studio right
Yeah,
now.
it's like Anderson Cooper standing in a puddle or whatever.
It's
like,
also like that room with the architect and Neo. You get to see all of the different.
thousand.
dharmas.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. And talking about these things is difficult because although I think as chaos kind of postmodern magicians, we can allude through culture and various things, but not everybody's doing this. Raphael, you've been silent basically. You tell us your thoughts.
I can talk to Andreas all day.
You're not on the microphone though.
Huh?
You unmute yourself or something
You can't hear me?
very faintly.
Are you serious?
Serious as the dog star.
I can hear him, but I'm in the room with him. So to be fair,
That sounds
No,
like Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
Hear
He's
me
like,
properly? Everything should be fine.
okay. Oh well, click and talk again.
hello.
Now, 1, 2, 3, 1,
Now
2,
we can
3.
definitely hear you. You were loud and
Okay,
proud.
sorry. Sometimes it's just the microphone here is disconnecting itself.
We're
So, well,
redefining
only-
loud, boys.
Only thing I want to... Is it too loud now?
No, I mean I don't know.
I like it. Leave it
Oh my God. All right. So, one thing I want to ask you, Jim, is have you already heard the somewhat newer interpretations, not to say conspiracies, that in the Matrix, actually, the real antagonist, in a sense, is not the architect, but at least equally is the Oracle, because in the end, the Oracle gets everything they want. And that's also why the Oracle, and I could never understand this, even though it is quite on your face, the Oracle always has Neo eat the cookies, right? Just like cookies in your browser. And some people then say, oh, this is how she was tracked or he was being tracked. And anyhow, ultimately, everything seems to work out. And I believe even in the last scene, the Oracle and the architect, they're sitting together and it's a new dawn. Basically, they
a
got
new
to
Aeon.
reset the way they
Yeah.
want it.
A neutron.
From what I understand.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because even the sky is like this shimmering kind of psychedelic acid vision. And it's like, well, these properties are different, which reminds me a little because Pharrell recently was talking to that producer who's all Zen. I can't remember his name now, but he's got a long beard. I think he produced 99 Problems with Jay-Z. Oh God, I have his book over there. It's a little circle with a dot, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, Rick Ross. Is that his name or is that a rapper?
Rick Rubin or Ross?
You know what I'm talking about. Rick Rubin, maybe. Anyway, if people in the comments know who the fuck I'm talking about, let me know. But
Rick Rubin.
yeah, okay. So he was just talking to Pharrell, and Pharrell's like, I don't know what the context was. I saved it on TikTok or something, but basically Pharrell's like, the game is changing, the universe is shifting gears. He wasn't alluding to astrology so much, but he's just like, things are changing, apocalypse language basically. And it's like, it doesn't mean it's all going to get destroyed, but it's going to transmute. And why I'm referencing that is because even in the new iteration of the Matrix, when they were popped out and that little Indian girl is like, oh, I'm the first wave here. We've got like the Adam and Eve divine council and this neutron or whatever, what's going on. It has new and different qualities. It's not the same as it ever was. It's like a totally new iteration, which is the new heaven and a new earth idea, I guess, kind of thing. Because how else would one describe a total reinsertion of data? I mean, I've heard it said this way, and it's actually a really compelling thought, where it's like, all right, let's just imagine we're a computer game and it's got code issues like this, like sin, if you want to put it that way, and our distance from God is like a viral issue within the programming. So there's this disconnect between us and like the original intention of the server itself. So we have like this kind of like lag or whatever, kind of like we're having today, like, issues technically. And that what I guess, I can't hear you. Or I hear you, but it's like not loud. It was distorted.
Continue. I'll try to fix it.
Here, just
Okay.
use my laptop. Here, just say here. Yeah,
People are wondering how y'all are together. They're in Vienna together. So
yeah. Because
yeah.
it's all because of the viewers like you.
Yeah,
Dedicated by the Rockefeller family, George Soros, and viewers like you.
Soros his son just got married to some crazy chick who,
and we're all wishing the best for them, you know.
I mean, hey, if they're gonna get married, you got to think that they think life is going to continue some way or whatever. I don't know. We're all over the place, which is, I love this Team Rabbit Hole, but I feels like I'm in like the magician and his nephew or whatever. It's like how many pools of time distillations. There's so many thoughts going on that I can't even like focus. But the moon is in Aquarius, so it's not terribly surprising. I don't know. We can shift gears entirely because what we're talking about is like the mystery. It can't be really described. We're all kind of just throwing our best ideas at the thing. But I think some monkeys are closer than others.
I like mystery because, you know, like there's the Masonic secret thing. I've never been a fan. Like, I don't think that secrets are like, I get when people want to keep secrets. Like, let's say you're living in Iran. There's probably like things you don't want to share. You know what I mean? Like you want to be safe.
That's Playboy
like,
collection. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but that's the difference. A secret is something that can be understood. It just isn't allowed to be. A mystery is something everyone can have all the information about. Go ahead, study it for your lifetime or your ancestors 12 lifetimes later. Everyone can have all the same data and still not get it because it's a mystery. It's something that's beyond comprehension. Yeah, I like mysteries.
That's a great distinction, actually, because it's open source. Anybody can access this, but
can you hear me any better now, Jim?
We can, 1,000.
All right, finally. So what I was about to say, because this is a common trope, even in many discussions about spirituality and all these systems and what you ought to do. And I would ask the question, does the server or the source really have an intention? And especially, is that intention as defined as humans like to make it out to be? So if the intention really is, you know, rainbows and I was about to say gay frogs, but whatever, you know, it's like no strife, no struggle and so on, maybe, or is it just the totality of experience itself? And then if you were to take anything away from it, it wouldn't be the whole thing. Because very often then, just like with the old man idea, people attribute, oh, God wants this, God wants that. Are you really sure about this? Would God allow anything that at the very least wouldn't have some sort of purpose in the grander scheme?
I can't speak for God, so I have no clue. But there's a really good
who can?
I know at least 6 people that think they can. Yeah. Well, one of them loves the White Sox right now.
Oh God. God only knows why. But so
God only knows what I
do with the pennant. The White Sox, they're like, we'll win. I know it. I don't even watch baseball that much, but the point, or at all, actually.
Very Masonic game.
So actually, 1,000%. I mean, you know the history there. It's totally built by Masons. But even they want to have fun on a sunny day. They're like, let's get out of the fucking shrine for a second. Let's play ball or whatever. Like, give Frank, you're gonna sell hot dogs? Okay, whatever. I mean, Tamagotchis are maybe a good idea where it's like, look, what is our intention with a Tamagotchi outside of the Tamagotchi's personal experience? Because there was like a Black Mirror episode about this kind of with I forget what it's called. Like ringlets or thoughtlets or something like that. I forget. But it's in the new season that just dropped. If you guys haven't seen it.
Stronglets. I haven't seen it, but I remember what you said.
Okay, you guys are together. Do it tonight. Watch it. Stream it somehow. It's like literally, it's about LSD and fucking computer programming and godhood and human nature and ascension, essentially through technosis. It's nuts. It's one of the best episodes of Black Mirror there ever was. And just human nature. Like we're idiot little animals at some level. Okay, because your question was like, is there a purpose for creating the sandbox for the programs to run in?
There can be a purpose. I'm just asking if that when individuals attribute a quite defined purpose, which aligns with their own preferences and ideology, whether that's maybe not too defined of a purpose, because then you get into this judgment of good and evil. And what I'd like to say, someone in chat mentioned this earlier, whether sin or evil, or however you want to call it, isn't just the idea of separating anything from you. And here again, we would very quickly be either with the Ein Sof and the, I guess, Jewish Kabbalistic mysticism idea, potentially, or, I don't know, Hindu or New Age ideas, where it's all about recognizing yourself as others and then of course you would treat them differently. So that may
Right.
be a part of it.
I mean, the shadow of that solipsism, but yeah, like this Arhat Buddhist thing where it's like everything's perfectly exactly as it should be. So I don't know, maybe some of the ultimate program goals were like compassion within duality. Like you're going to have to rise above situationalism in spite of itself. Like you're going to be, I mean, it's Machiavellianism is obviously the easiest route for everybody. It's like, I'll do whatever I want because it feels good. Push the easy button. Fuck you. Like we had to evolve, and animals do that largely. So we had to evolve, it seems, out of iterations of programming. And now we're in the latest and greatest, and we're creating Chappie or whatever that may or may not do that itself. Hopefully, we're not just squashed like little ants by AI one day.
Did you watch The Good Place?
I know, but I understand the premise a little. Like the plot twist, I kind of get it. It's like it's not what we think it is.
Well, I mean, like that's the plot twist with every religion. But they say it's like that's at the very beginning of the first episode. They're like, she asked like which religion got it right. And he's like, well, the Hindus were like 5% right. Muslims had a little bit of it. Christians, Jews, basically every religion had like one or two things right.
They were
But
touching the elephant somehow.
But the only person who got like the closest was this guy Doug Forsyth, who was a Canadian Calgary. He's a kid in Calgary who was on mushrooms one night in the 70s, and his friend asked him how the universe worked, and he just went into the spiel, and all the angels in heaven were watching him. Like, dang, this guy got really close, like 97% right about how things work. You know,
it's like the St. Stephen Epiphany, where he's like, "I'm getting stoned to death, but here's the download, guys," or whatever.
But yeah, without I guess ruining The Good Place for people who haven't seen it, like the idea of like your soul ascending and the process to ascend into heaven or paradise or nirvana or something like that. There's a very universalizing quality of the show because it kind of gets to the root in a lot of ways of what a lot of different traditions believe. And then what happens when you're on that path? Like what happens if you forget like who you are? Can you go through the well of forgetfulness, and can you do it again? And like, how many times do you have to keep trying to understand yourself, but in the process, helping each other, which uplifts each other for their next pursuit? Because even if you scramble, and we talk about the mummy,
like the movie?
your heart, yeah. Well, and just also what mummification is, because you're preparing someone to go to the other side, and they have the heart, and they keep your heart. It's the most important engine. It's a toroidal vortex engine for your soul.
It's like Iron Man.
But they scramble. They take a hot wire and stick it up your nose and scramble your brain, then drain it out, because your brain is it's not useless, but it's a one-time usable, disposable object.
It's one and done.
Yeah, it's not like your brain's something that you're supposed to keep for every lifetime, And so that says a lot also about who we are, like our egos, why it's okay and probably necessary to have ego death. And if you can do it in your lifetime, it can be scary, but can maybe help you advance even further quicker, because you don't get so tied into who you are in this lifetime, but like what you are made of, and the breath, this eternal breath that comes into you, and it's breathing you. Do you ever just focus on feeling like you're not breathing, but air is pushing itself into you and air is pushing itself out of you, and you're kind of being held? You're like not in charge of your own
You're the
breath.
fish in water kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's a big way that we're supposed to look at, and that's part of that meditation earlier, that samadhi thing, to reach an awareness or stillness, that you're in yoga, or the original root of the word Islam, right? To be in this sort of yoke and this bliss, of submission.
I'm in the headlock of life, but I accept the challenge or whatever. It's funny because Alan Watts has a great meditation. I usually listen to it when I'm about to trip or something. Not all the time now, but it used to be like kind of my go-to when I was like, I'm gonna trip and who knows where this will go. Could be good, could be bad. Alan Watts has this thing. If you look it up, Alan Watts meditation, it's like 14 minutes, and it's got a lot of choral kind of behind it, because it's like how to get into the meditative state. And it's like it's a both and. Talk about Gemini season. It's a both and. It's not either or. You are creating the universe in terms of like your apertures, creating the conditions for your apprehension of the Tao, but simultaneously, like it's happening to you. So like you were saying, like you're not controlling your breath particularly when you're breathing. You might feel like you have some influence on it, but ultimately, like, try to hold your breath forever. Good luck, right? Like there's going to be forces beyond you. that are really primitive in your wiring that say keep the engine
It's
stroked.
not your breath. That's kind of the lesson.
Mhm.
It's like it's in you, but you know you're not. It's not your breath. It's a breath that existed before you. It will exist after you die.
Right. You've seen the film Baraka,
Yeah,
the
for sure.
art film? Yeah, because I think Aloha has breath, and I think Baraka has something to do with breath, where it's like, and even Michael Jackson, who is, I think, either a Virgo or Pisces, I forget now, because you're a Pisces, I know that, or an Aquarius first degree, I forget, but there's a song like "Can You Feel It?" Right? It's like every like breath, like every newborn is breathing a new air as someone else like exasperates, like they're dying, and it's not exactly 1-to-1 ratios clearly at this point, but
Michael Jackson was a Virgo.
with a Pisces mood, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ascension.
So super emotional perfectionist. He's like, I'm not bleached enough. Give me another bleach job. But yeah, I mean, I'm not against that in a sense where it's like we're all in this DAO and we're participating with it, but that gets into the whole like kind of theological implication of it's like you're on loan, like take care of everybody and treat others nicely because it's not even your property to begin with. We have this very emancipated post-libertarian kind of thing where it's like I do me, I can do whatever I want with my body and stuff, and in a weird way the dream is allowing you to do that within the domains of the program. So yes, you can betray the other's cipher, or yes, you can you can do things, but at the same time it's like, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, you're on loan from God, like in a sense, like
But it's like a vehicle. You know, your body's a vehicle for the breath. So it's supposed to get the breath where it needs to go. And then you're supposed to leave the keys with the valet on your way to the ball. You're not supposed to keep the body, not the vehicle.
Isn't it Merkaba like a vehicle? Doesn't that like mean that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that gets back into Egyptian thinking, which is like you got polarities
Chariots
making a
and fire.
toroid. Yeah. That's a great movie. I think that's probably free somewhere, like maybe on Tubi or some shit. Chariots of Fire. You ever seen that?
For sure. Yeah, and the who's the guy who made the music for Chariots of Fire?
Vigilis or something. Vangelis.
Yeah. Vangelis. He had a band called Aphrodite's Child back in the 60s in Greece. And they have this song, It's 5 o'clock, and I walk through the empty streets. Like that whole album, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The album's called 666, I think.
Oh my God. I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, you need to. You would really like it, honestly.
I'll check it out.
I'll listen to it later myself, actually.
We've got homework, clearly.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard of Vangelis. He was kind of like, I don't even know, like a synth coked out Daft Punk of the day or something. Like he was like big. There he is.
Yeah,
he looks like that philosopher who's always like gravel throated on coke.
Slavoj Žižek.
He does have a Zizekian vibe. Here's his Aphrodite's Child. If I type in, let's see.
There it is, 666.
There you go. This was the album cover.
I saw another one. Go back. There was like a vehicle. Yeah, there it is. This transcendental object at the end of time. Another brick in the wall.
I haven't seen this one. The Apocalypse of John 13:18, and you got the vehicle being destroyed as it smashes through the wall, the brick wall. Dang.
There's a perfect vehicle, and then there's the dissembled. It's like Solway and Coagula right there. It's like, what is the solution?
Anyone who has the intelligence, it says at the bottom, anyone who has the intelligence may interpret the number of the beast. It is a man's number. This number is 666.
Or 616, depending on the translation. I always loved that thing. I was such a Gemini fucking little like teaser where it's like a mind game. Like, where's Waldo in the Bible? It's like, anybody who can hack this, feel free. It's open source. It's a little like that AI movie where the guy Ex Machina. It's like, here's an open problem. Whoever solves it gets to fuck with the architect of that AI.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I don't know. We've been talking for an hour and a half. You guys want to keep geeking for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to talk a bit about what we're doing tomorrow. We should bring up David.
Yeah, no, this is a big deal. Just happy Father's Day, the father of a conspiracy world to a degree. 10 of Pentacles. I mean, talk about a jackpot win. You got it. Because I have never read David Icke's books or anything, but I understand what he's about. And Jesus Christ, talk about rising through adversity. He was definitely like laughed at for a hot long time, and now he's like, people think more respectfully of him and stuff. So yeah,
he's gone back and forth. So at first he was like he's a soccer player, right?
Mm.
He got hit in the head probably too many times. Who knows? Maybe that's why he woke up one day. But he was then doing BBC reporting and journalism, and then all of a sudden he's like hearing a voice from the heavens. They're like, "You are the Son of God." In fact,
like Dick style.
All of you children are the sons and daughters of God, and that if we don't start living in harmony with nature, nature's going to start striking back because Mother Earth is going to have earthquakes and tsunamis and like nuclear like accidents and things
There's
like that.
karma
All kinds
for-
of things that he predicted that happened after that, which is they keep putting him on TV at that time. And then he's like, yeah, but I don't wonder why people aren't listening. And they're making fun of him, but he's talking to some people that do get it. And just getting into, I think there are like systems of control. We have the monarchy in England, and there's the Freemasons. The people are definitely, the Freemasons are worried about the Catholics. The Catholics are worried about the Freemasons. Everyone's worried about the systems of control. How closely tied are they together? And who are these groups like in Asia? Because there's in Africa and Asia, they have elite families too. A lot of these countries have like 10 families that run them as well. And so then he starts reading about from like the John Birch Society and things, the Council of 300, and that there's these many families that are together, and that they call themselves the Draconian royal family, or the Chinese say that they're all the emperors are descendant from dragons, right?
Draco,
This reptilian, the reptilian thing that emerged, and this is also a Christian, not every Christian, but the Gnostics and certain kinds of non-Nicene
like the
Christians
serpent in the
talked
garden.
about.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that Lucifer, or well, that Cain, Abel and Cain, that Cain is not the son of Adam, that Cain is the son of the serpent. That
What?
when Eve knew the serpent and knew this information, took a bite of the fruit and all this thing, that there's also this aspect that the firstborn of Eve isn't Adam's son; he's fully cuckolded, and that Abel is the son of Adam. So it's sort of like the son of Michael, according to the Latter-day Saints. They think of the angel Michael, as the spirit that is Adam's spirit. So that there are maybe two kinds of humans on this world. And he gets in so much trouble for saying that, because they're like, hey, this is anti-Semitic, which is really weird, because he didn't say anything anti-Semitic. And that they're saying that reptilians mean Jewish people, to me says something kind of weird about them, the accusers, right?
Sure.
So I might be missing something here, but this kind of led into this whole thing where they're like, oh, well, this guy is dangerous, because he's talking about these families all over the world. And he's saying they're not human, which is an excuse for dehumanizing people, which I don't really see that as anything Icke did. And at that time, you have Alex Jones emerging on the scene, and he's talking about Waco and what's going on with the Branch Davidians, and they're kind of like hyper interesting Seventh-day Adventist religious group. We're gonna have Will
He was probably
Morgan.
celebrating Father's Day. Oh, Will Morgan! I'm trying to get him on. Raphael, I was going to ask you a question. He's an interesting cat.
We'll set it up. I definitely am gonna have. I have him on every once in a while in Think Tank, but I want to get a one-on-one with him just to talk about the Branch Davidians more, because all we kind of know is that Waco happened, but they existed since the 70s, and they had a lot about the feminine persona of the Holy Spirit, kind of tying the Holy Spirit to Sophia. And they're very literalist, biblical literalist. They believe that everything in the Bible is literal, but they're like the least weird literalist Christians, and they're very weird.
Guns.
Well, the gun thing is only later, right? So that's Koresh. It's not in the 70s that happens.
Okay,
It's
so
the 90s.
he subverted the cult.
He takes over the cult, but I'm not saying that he's a bad guy either. I don't know. I'm not a Branch Davidian. I don't have like I just know that Will Morgan definitely knows way more about them than any survivor of Waco. He's the guy who you'd go to learn about what they believe.
That might explain a lot, actually. It's funny. I remember being a kid, being in like first grade and playing dodgeball at a private school, Christian school, and kids were like, somebody said they were Jesus and they died. They got shot. It was like the Waco sitch. My dad went to Baylor, which is in Waco, so it's like,
wow,
fuck, yeah.
I mean, clearly, like killing a bunch of people is going to martyr them, and so it makes what they believed in and died for more interesting, not less. But
there's a great documentary on that. I don't know if you've seen it. It's 3 parts. It's fucking crazy. It's good because it's basically like, I mean, it was a situation that got out of control, basically. I mean, not only is it like bad Father's Day vibes, like cultish kind of stuff going on, whether they have a good idea on things doesn't mean, just like the Sanhedrin can kind of fucking ruin Yeshua's parade or whatever. It seemed, I forget if it was on Netflix or what. I think it was a Netflix documentary, but it was 3 parts and you can watch it for yourselves and make your own estimations on it. But basically it was one of the more compelling documentaries I've seen of modern times. And although Grizzly Man's pretty dope. And it was kind of getting into like, they were starting to manufacture weapons, and then the FBI is coming in and all this stuff. The grenade goes off. They're like, it's just a tragedy, basically. A lot of innocent people got. It's like the Jonestown massacres. It's like they didn't want to die. If you ever see footage of that, they're like, drink up now, do it or else. Oh my gosh, we've got guns. It's like, talk about a pressure cooker.
Yeah, for sure.
Or like jumping from the buildings in 9/11 kind of stuff.
I feel like the Jonestown's even, more obviously that the people didn't really want to be there and they wanted to leave. I think what's interesting about Waco is that the Branch Davidians really convinced. They believe what they were saying. And, not just that, they're dealing in a world which is clearly not living up to their expectations. Most religious groups in Texas, even, were not living up to their. If you read, this is the whole thing, the way that Waco worked is they say, hey, this is what the Bible says. We believe that. Yeah, everyone. So how far do you take that by, Lutheran access to the Bible for the everyman? And then what does that create? Because it can lead to some weird places where if people start to think that the word of God isn't Jesus, but pen and paper, the word of God is then the Bible itself. Then you have this idea that you have this voicemail of the Quran from Allah. That's essentially like the Sunni belief. This
right.
idea
Don't
that
edit it. Like even the typos.
it's inerrant.
Like, don't touch it.
I mean, I think that I'm not saying that the Branch Davidians are wrong or right. I'm just saying that if you take it to its logical conclusion, you end up at Waco. So you should be careful about it. You should really think about what you mean when you say you believe in the
beliefs and definitions.
NIV Bible or the King James Bible, like, and you say this is the word of God, not just of King James, right?
Right. That's what I mean. Trust me, when I get in conversations with like more fundamentalist people, I'm like, all right, so it says you can do these things in greater. What do you make of that? Like, they don't have like a way to bootstrap that thought, or it mentions the Nephilim.
Yeah, they're usually like, God's just kidding, or that's a reference to something earlier. It's a joke that God was making. Like literally, they don't want to take it seriously, which is really cognitive dissonance.
Well, that's the nature of human. Yeah. I mean,
and another thing about Zoomer evangelicals. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Well, it takes all kinds, but I just saw that apparently the Trump administration has replaced on, I guess, all their lapels. They had like flags since 9/11. That's the thing to do, show your patriotism or whatever the fuck that trip is. And now they're using, I don't know if this is true, but golden, like the face of Trump in gold is now on their chest. It's like very North Korea.
What, seriously? I was expecting like a Roman eagle or something, but that.
No, it's the Trump. And I don't know how true this is, but apparently he was blessed by the rabbinical.
Yeah, this is like his Cyrus gold coin, which they already did in 2016 or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Strange days. And I guess today is a big like political day in America, like no King's Day. And then that's what his response is. Everyone show your golden patronage support to my kingdom or whatever. It's like, what the fuck? Because for a while I wasn't like against Trump. I thought he was a wrecking ball, but now I'm just like, is this like, how many generation of a psyop is this? What's going on here?
The golden, this is the Apollo thing too. So the golden boy or the golden child or the golden king, David Plate will bring it up probably tonight on Think Tank more, talking about Apollo and how that Trump is obsessed with Apollo and how all of this Apollo symbolism. But that goes back to Moses, because Moses in Akhenaten, if you read Freud's book on Moses, talking about a Sarsef as this priest, at least, of Akhenaten.
Like the monotheist thing?
Yeah, this idea that Aten is into Amarna, and the baseball diamond, which brought up earlier, because the baseball diamond is the open temple without a roof, right? So that you're just in the presence of Apollo, which is what Aten is in Amarna. Aten is the son of God. So there is this idea of the sun that is shining bright for God because God said, let there be light. And then you get to fight back and forth whether you're saying the morning star or the bright morning star. Are you talking about Lucifer? Or are you talking about Jesus? But that's another question for people, how much they think that those characters are galvanized and divided from already existing a similar tradition. And then one saying, well, no, your version's the lie version. Your version's the Luciferian version of that. But really, it's that if that's true, Ein Sof is that in the darkness, and the still in the darkness is Hekek, and this idea of darkness is where God comes from. God is out of
the mystery.
The mystery.
Yeah.
And then Lucifer is God says, let there be light, and God said, this is good. So you can look at it that way, but also God separates themselves from the light. Lets the light be a separate entity. That's the beginning of the material reality, unanimity minus one, I and thou.
It's like what was the dad? His name in Tron? I forget now. You keep saying it.
Kevin Flynn, like
Kevin
Kevin
Flynn.
Home
It's like
Alone.
Kevin Flynn was like, let me make a Tron and it will have wave particle duality in its own situation or whatever. Because I mean, the trip is that Lucifer was the best angel, right? Like number right hand man or whatever. Possibly pre-incarnational Christly, although some theologies would say that Christ always existed in some weird way. Although, how do you have a body if there's no creation? So it gets kind of problematic really quickly there. But yeah, it's actually in the Silmarillion, it does a really good job of depicting, I guess, an altered version of what it could be like in another lensing, because it's not Judeo-Christian outright, but it's like they made this awesome chord and it was beautiful, like Brian Wilson style. They're singing all these harmonies, and then like one I forget, it's like Malcor or something like that. It's like the Lucifer fallen angel, where it's like, I know how to sing disharmony, and I'm going to start doing that and making like death metal brown note stuff. I'm rambling, I know.
No, I was trying to find the character in Tron Legacy who is working for Clue, because Clue has a program
He's
underneath
got a few
him.
people, right?
Yeah, but there's this like bald dude who's his oh
yeah, he looks like an Egyptian priest meets like cousin It or whatever, or
yeah, totally
Adam's Family guy.
And he says to Clue, he's like, did you appreciate the ceremony? I thought that the crowd, like, I did my best. I thought that the crowd was quite stirred. Yeah. And he's like, and then Clue says it wasn't for them, which is a very, I mean, imagine you're Lucifer and you're constantly trying to worship God and you're the best at it. And every day you have to be novel in your worship of God and kind of you go insane worshiping God. But this maybe explains pop music, because everyone talks about how the best music is from musicians who sold their soul to the devil. You can hear the devil in the music, because the devil singing about God and then singing about how I don't need God and how I'm just going to party all my life. And then I'm going to just, I'm going to focus on myself. It's like, okay, clearly Lucifer's gone through a pretty bad breakup with their master, It's
the inversion of samadhi. Instead of being at peace in one-ment or whatever atonement, you're like, all right, I'm going to feel every color you like, Pink Floyd style, and every flavor, and LGBTQ flags and or whatever. It's like, I mean, that's the kind of polarity on that level. It's like one is like, hey, purity, I guess you could say, at a transcendent level, and then the other one would be like infinite multiplicity and taste every nook of the fractal always and forever. And it's like those aren't necessarily against each other, antithetical, but it's like the monad is not the fractal, if that makes sense, though the monad is traceable in the fractal at all points. So that's why I'm not a panentheist particularly, although creation just having fingerprints of design doesn't make it. This gets tricky because is creation conscious? If it is, then we're just in consciousness and it's all like this hologram. And then it's like, but Tron isn't Kevin Flynn. Like the program isn't the creator. If that makes sense. It's imbued by it and has imprints of him in it. So there's evidentiality of a creator. That's why they're like,
that's
oh my
what
God.
I say. I think that the fact that there is sacred geometry and order before there's evolution says that there's already there's a divine plan or intelligent design kind of insinuates that we're not just evolving to a point where monkeys become humans who finally say with religion we're going to search for a straight line or a curve. Like straight lines and curves are ideas that exist before nature even tries to emulate them. So there is a relationship there between the creation and a creator that seems maybe self-evident. But that doesn't mean that we're not conscious or that we are. We probably are consciousness itself. And that might be the breath, again, the idea of the breath of God, animate inside of stardust. Like we're dirt God breathed. That's basically, I think there's a really kind of a Kabbalistic joke there that we're just holy dirt.
Golems.
Yeah, you're just dirt, you're God breathed. But at the same time, you're stardust. You can say it however you want to make it sound beautiful and really, special, that you're made up of the cosmic dust or something, but it's still dust, and it goes back to dust if it doesn't have the breath. So there's a relationship or there.
The animating spirit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because it does say like from dust to dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, like from clay you came, from clay you'll go, and that's a very obviously Mesopotamian kind of worldview context where they didn't understand fucking nebula and stars and shit the same way.
I found his name. Apparently, the dude who serves clue is Jarvis.
which is totally Iron Man. That looks like an Iron Man
Exactly.
mask.
Jarvis is the Iron Man AI, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he gets his own like shtick in that side project with the Black Widow or whatever. I don't even know. But, there was like a TV show about the guy. I think Disney made a thing. You know what I'm talking about? I didn't watch
I
it.
guess Jarvis means wise warrior servant or vassal.
Right. He looks like a priest of Egypt meets Iron Man mask see-through print. He like 3D printed his own mask. That was
There's
the
something
worst
to it.
part of that movie. The CGI. It's like I guess there has to be like stepping stones towards it, right? But like that was one of the
True.
first things where it was like, here's CGI, and I was like, this is
I
ugh.
think it was kind of important for the uncanny valley thing because it's like you naturally know God's design. And so if you see something that's in effigy but not quite even perfect, if it's not perfect, then
It's gonna hit you wrong.
you have an uncomfortable feeling, which is probably biological from, imagine you're in the woods and you hear something that sounds human but isn't, or you see the face on a snake that isn't, you can be distracted. If you hear like a bird, a giant bird, like a dragon, it's like, help, help, and you're alone in the rainforest. You might not realize like this thing that's screaming for help is just trying to trick you so that they can eat you. So you have to have this uncanny valley perception of something that's not human, that's not right. And this gets into that scaled approach of if we're made in DNA and like cosmic entities. I mean, I'm sure with Icke we'll talk about this more.
Right.
The idea of Kardashev scale type 3 civilizations using stars to transmit data, radio wave, scalar wave, microwave data that is
Contact.
vibrating
Yeah.
crystalline particles, particulates in saline solution, like those oceans, salt water, getting hit by light, causing ribonucleic acid
Like
to
punctuation
form.
evolution, basically.
Yeah,
like
that it's 3D printing with radio, wireless
Oh my
3D printing with
god.
radio.
What you were saying, ironically, and I will say there's a Aldous Huxley book. I forget what it's called, but it's about mushrooms. It's a really good book. I forget what it's called, The Island or something like that. And there's a bird that says karuna, and that means like compassion in Buddhism or something. So it's like the bird could say help and freak you out, uncanny valley style, but it also can maybe enlighten you depending on which pill you're red pill or blue pilling it. But yeah, this kind of went along with the uncanny valley, what you were saying, in terms of like we've evolved to like be wary of things that are same but different. So it's like reptilian shapeshifters, whatever. It's like this isn't exactly one of us. It's a son of Cain. Watch out, right? Whatever.
Yeah, the closer it is and not quite right, the more you're supposed to be like scared of those subtle differences. The subtle differences stick out far more.
Right, like an ex machina. It's like, I mean, that's one of the things. Once like, it's one thing to have a program that you're taught into ChatGPT. It's another thing to be like, wow, you're hot. I'd fuck you, or whatever. Yeah. Crosses into new terrain or whatever. So yeah, what are some of the things you want to be talking to him about, David Icke? Like that, what you just said. Is that one of his theories? I'd never even heard that.
I don't think he's gone that far, but he talks a bit about They Live and the idea that the hollow moon is being used for, radio transmissions, that we're living in a Schumann resonance illusion that's being manipulated. But
That's
essentially,
kind of like a Philip K. Dick black magic.
Yeah. And I think that
Matrix.
his newest book is called The Reveal. So we'll get into that a lot more, like the idea that people are starting to be revealed what's going on. And I think that's even from the Zohar. I don't know if he's going to go into that, but David will be there, David Plate. And by the way, I know it's already 9, so I have to start the next show. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, we're winding down. I figured.
But the thing that David will talk about, I'm sure, is the Zohar, and this idea that there's the corpse bride story, so that you're walking up to kiss the bride and you don't see her, but you see everyone else watching you, and you're being peer pressured into, well, I've already made this step, so I should make the next step, and I'm now halfway there, so I just get the other halfway. And then you're there, and then the bride is revealed, and it's a corpse bride, and it's the kiss of death, but you've done everything else up to that point. So do you just accept that? Do you just take that kiss? Or do you step away finally? You're like, okay, actually, I object.
Heady questions. Yeah, when you get up to the altar, does Abraham plunge because he's already built the altar, or you say, "Wait a second, maybe there's nothing."
Bring one thing practical, and maybe we'll bring it up
one
today
thing
or tomorrow. Yeah, of course, just one thing on the show with David Icke. But I was basically scanning the internet whenever the lockdown started happening, and we've spoken with Andreas, especially on the shows No Entry Part 2 on Europa about this in detail. But Icke was one of the very few guys in terms of practical advice who was always aware of the Hegelian dialectic, the whole perception thing. He was quote unquote warning of Trump in terms of not idolizing him, and that there will be issues as well, which of course we see now because they're all beholden to the same power structure, it appears. And also he was one of the very few guys that in my mind, or in my understanding, actually gave the right analysis right when the lockdowns and COVID started happening. And you had all these discussions, is it from here, is it from there? And he was one of the few guys who I think gave a
deviated
correct analysis.
Yeah.
And that's impressive because so many artists and all, you know, they all talk about this and that, and then years later they say, oh, the other conspiracy is actually true, but very few get to the bottom of it. And from what I could see back then, he was one of the few guys who immediately pointed out there is fundamental issues with virology here which we are completely overlooking. So props to him for that, because if everyone would have been aware of that, there would have been no show whatsoever.
That's crazy. All right, I know you got a dip. This was definitely a 10 of Pentacles jackpot. It's been a fun time networking and hanging out. This is Team Rabbit Hole as fuck. Talk about, I mean, this is almost schizophrenic in terms of how much we covered, but always a pleasure, Andreas. I hope you guys have a blast. I'm glad you guys are hanging out. Right. Have fun tomorrow. Tell David, hey, anybody I know or whatever. But yeah, guys, it is my 40th birthday in Tuesday, so wish me happy birthday, guys.
Dude,
40,
happy birthday.
40?
I love you very much. I'm glad that we made this time. Let's do it again soon.
Definitely. All right. Any last thoughts, Ralph?
Well, happy birthday. Thank you,
Well,
Jim.
sure. Uncanny
Next
slap
time,
music. Do it.
In the best case, all the three of us will fit into one frame, so we'll get that done eventually.
One day.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, Andreas. And of course, thanks everyone watching, listening, and in chat. Peace, y'all. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you.